at 5 past.
It'll take a second. There you go, because I added everyone. It'll take a second to load everyone.
Yeah, amazing. Wow.
There was like 200 odd people waiting. So,
hey, welcome everybody. It's lovely to see you. We're going to have 5 minutes while we just let people arrive. But we're delighted that you're here. If you want to mute on entry, that would be fantastic.
It should mute on entry, but there might be a lag between when they join and when it does it. If that makes sense.
Okay. We'd love to know where you are in the country. And so if you want to use the chat function, that will help us to know whereabouts, which areas you're in. If you know your local authority, where you're based or maybe some of your properties are, that would be quite helpful to us. So you might want to just start using the chat function for that. And we'd love to know how you heard about today as well. Just as we're waiting for people to arrive, let's get friendly on the chat. I'm Krish Kandiah. I'm going to be your host today, and I'm heading up an organisation called Afghan Welcome, which is a coalition of different charities working across the UK to offer support to these lovely people that have just arrived from Afghanistan. We've got a really good programme together with some absolute experts, and we're going to be delighted to hear directly from a good friend of mine, Ali, who's recently come to the UK as a refugee. So we're going to hear some of his story. But wonderful, good to see we got people from Northamptonshire, Greenwich, Wigan, Bridgend, Port Talbot. Oh, excellent. We're doing well from Wales, especially. Well done. The Welsh are leading the way. It's good to see you. Oh, someone heard from Facebook, and I'm sorry, I'm addicted to Facebook, so that's probably my fault. Great. Sheffield, Loughborough, Birmingham, Nottingham, Brighton and Hove. Oh, well done. That's my home county. So good to see you. It's really wonderful to have you here. This is our first event. We went from having no event to having 500 people buy tickets. We actually sold out of the tickets, all the free tickets as they are. We're going to be recording today. So if you don't want your face to be seen, that's totally fine. But we're very friendly. So if you want to put your camera on, it'd be lovely to see you. And there will be opportunities for you to ask questions as we go. There's a lot of us. So you might want to use the chat function. And our lovely host, Shona, who's a volunteer helping us today, might be able to help us monitor that and just spot any questions that people have as we go through. 3 minutes, just as we allow people to be late and arrive safely, and then we'll start to do some introductions. But it's great to see you. Hey, Alan Turner, I can see you. Where are you coming from today? You want to come off mute and we'll say hi?
Yeah, we live in Bracknell, but we have a couple of properties in Farnham in Surrey.
Oh, brilliant. And what inspired you to come along today?
Well, we normally rent to students, and the student market seems to be very flat at the moment. Students not wanting to sign up for a 10 or 12 month tenancy agreement. And we were just interested to see what the situation is regarding the incoming Afghani families.
That's brilliant, Alan. Thank you for joining us. And that's a really interesting question about the student market changing things. I know 3 of my kids, well, 2 have just finished uni, one's in their 2nd year. And it's interesting, lots of thinking about studying from home and online in a different way than people used to be going down there. And that could give us an opportunity, particularly for this group who tend to need larger housing. But we'll get into that as we go through. Brilliant. What about Carl Stewart? Where are you, Carl, in the country? Nice to see you.
Hi, Chris. Likewise, nice to meet you. I'm based in North London, but I've got a small portfolio of houses up in Wakefield, West Yorkshire.
Oh, great. Very good. And what inspired you to come along today, Carl?
Really, it was just, I've heard quite a bit about the situation in Afghanistan, and it's obviously very unfortunate and very sad that these people are being displaced. And I was just thinking about how I may possibly be able to provide some housing for people and try and make things a bit better.
That's wonderful. Really good to have you here. Thanks for joining us. And actually, because of the way the migration works, they could go anywhere in the country. So that's wonderful. Good. Okay, 1 minute till kickoff. We've got 196 people in the room, and it's super exciting. When I was talking to the National Residential Landlords Association, we weren't sure whether there'd be interest, but you are proving that there is interest. And some of my friends are very mean about landlords, and they said landlords, they're only interested in money, they wouldn't be interested in helping Afghans. And I said, I don't believe that. And the fact that you're here today is great testament to your passion to kind of see what we can do to help. Oh, 242 people here now, so that's great. Okay, if you want to mute when you come in, that's great. We're going to make a formal start now, and please use the chat. If someone says something that you agree with, brilliant, you know, let's say that. If someone says something that raises a question, put that in the chat too. We like reactions, so there's a little reaction bar along the bottom. If you've got an urgent question, you can raise your hand. It looks a little bit like that. Or if you want to say that you're supporting something that's said, you could do that. I'm emoji illiterate. So I thought this one meant that I was crying in sympathy, but it means I'm laughing. So if accidentally someone shares a really difficult story and you do that, we'll just assume that you mean that you're crying in sympathy if you get that wrong.
Laura, are you okay?
Hi, sorry. we were struggling with this iPad.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Now.
Fantastic. All right. So let me introduce myself. My name is Krish Kandiah, and I'm the director of this newly formed coalition of charities called Afghan Welcome. You may have seen us. We had a lovely piece in The Guardian yesterday as we're seeking to wrap around families that are being housed in hotels. You've seen on the news the kind of mass evacuation of people from Afghanistan, fleeing the Taliban. We're not going to get into the politics, the geopolitics. That's not our job here. We're just here to help people that are in need. But we've seen the desperation, people hanging on to the outside of aeroplanes, people crammed in, I think 640 people crammed into the hold of one of those cargo planes. So you understand the kind of trauma that people have had to come here. The group that we're looking to help initially is the ARAP group. And that was the planned evacuation of support staff and translators, mechanics, anyone that worked with our troops or our embassy who are in particular threat to life. And sadly, many of those we weren't able to get out. Not just the UK, but the US and other governments didn't get everybody out. And there's all sorts of reports about the Taliban going door to door looking to try and find those people. So we're grateful we managed to get the numbers out that we did. But once they're here, these refugees are put into a quarantine hotel just to make sure that we're okay with COVID. And then because there's this lag or lack of available social housing, many are going into hotels. And that's where I am today. I'm just outside Milton Keynes. There's 250 Afghan people living in one hotel, and 3/4 of the people in that hotel are children. Afghan families are larger, actually. They're the same as mine. I have 6 children. We're foster parents, adoptive parents, so 2 adults, 6 children. So I'm very at home in this environment, but that's quite a large family group. And that's where we're having the biggest challenge with finding housing. And so people are staying in these hotels. Some have been in the hotel for a month because the evacuation started, 4 or 5 weeks ago. And the biggest thing they want to know is, where are we going to live? Because it's very hard to get on with your life, rebuilding your life in a hotel with maybe 175 children running around. That's really tough. It's hard to rebuild your life when your family is spread over 5 bedrooms and there's no lounge. There's no, you can't cook for yourself. You can't do the things that we would want to do if we were in their circumstances. And people are really traumatized because their family, they're only allowed to bring their dependent children under the age of 18. So some families have had to make the impossible decision of leaving 18-year-old children behind. Can you imagine? All the families have had to leave their parents behind, their brothers, their sisters who are still in country. And because it's been 24/7 news coverage, that's really traumatizing. People are really, really concerned. So it's out of this desire that we are trying to find a way to find housing. Housing makes everything better again, because you can be a family, you can, you know, eat together, you can cook the food that you're used to, your kids can start going to school, you can look for work, all those things that these lovely people would like to get on with. Housing is the key challenge. And the quicker we can get people out of the hotels and into housing, the better it is for everybody. On top of that, maybe you saw the news just over 10 days ago that a 5-year-old Afghan boy fell out of a hotel window in Sheffield. And for me, that was absolutely heartbreaking. You know, this family escaped from the Taliban, having stood with our troops. They can't live in their own country anymore because they're going to be hounded down by the Taliban. They managed to get here, and then desperately heartbreaking that this accident would happen. We need to get people out of hotels and into housing. So we're delighted that you're here. Our aim is to encourage, inspire, but also answer some of your questions. We've got a brilliant lineup of people to help us with that, and I'll guide us through and introduce each one. Now, the first person I want to introduce is Phillip Cox, who works at the National Residential Landlords Association. And he may be the reason that you've heard about today, because NRLA have co-sponsored this event with us at Afghan Welcome. So let me introduce Phillip. Phillip, over to you.
Thanks, Krish, and good afternoon, everybody. I'm delighted to see so many people attending, and particularly members, of course, of the NRLA. I'm the finance director, and we as an organisation are wholly supportive of what Krish and the Afghan Welcome team are doing. Thanks for putting the slides up. But there's not many of these, you'll be pleased to hear. And as Krish has rightly said, I think everyone understands that housing is the critical part of the integration journey for these families and for the refugees generally. And we see that the NRLA, we have a very significant role to play. I mean, just a little bit about what we are, if we just move on one slide, a la Chris Whitty shown, if you don't mind. For those who don't know the NRLA, we have over 90,000 members with about 500,000 properties in their collective portfolios. That's over 10% of the private rented sector, the PRS. And as an organisation, we not only believe we represent the PRS, but we work with the government and there's a colleague from MHCLG here, but we have the ear of government and local authorities as well. We provide a really good forum and contact point and networking space for private rented sector landlords. We've got 40,000 social media followers. We're working with our landlord members to make sure that they're providing safe and secure homes. So we see our members as responsible landlords, and Krish touched on very quickly about the public perception of landlords generally. We think that is misplaced and misaligned, and we believe our members are testament to that. And we're looking to expand that membership. We are a not-for-profit organisation, so it's not a commercial drive. It's about increasing the voice of the private rented sector in government, and it's about increasing the facilitation for landlords to talk to each other and share their journeys. And we have a range of services that we bring to landlords. And if we could move to the next slide, Shomer, if you don't mind. Just moving on. Yeah, thank you. You know, we provide landlord resources. So particularly for those landlords managing their portfolio, we see this Afghan challenge that the country is facing, and I believe it is the country collectively, as a real opportunity for responsible landlords. And I think one or two of you have touched on it already. And where the NRLA fits in is that we can bring training, we can bring resources, whether it's tenancy agreements, whether it's forms of contract, whether it's legal notices. We provide all of that free to our members. We have a range of suppliers and partners that we work with that can get you good pricing for any resources or services that you need. But I think the key thing that we can do, the two key things that the NRLA can do for this group and for private landlords particularly, is around, firstly, our advice team. We have a team of expert, experienced advisors on the phone. So it's not about chat, it's about talking to a human being to answer your technical, legal and regulatory questions. And let's face it, we have a very challenged group of tenants that we're dealing with the Afghan refugees as they come in. They're not going to be familiar with the landscape in the UK. And so you know, the challenges that they face are going to bring challenges for us as landlords. Our advice team is on hand in business hours to handle technical questions. As I say, they're extremely experienced, they're extremely friendly, they're extremely knowledgeable, and they provide an excellent and very highly rated service to our members, and hopefully any members on this call would bear witness to that. We do specialise in HMO advice, and houses of multiple occupation may be an integral part of the solution to this particular challenge that we're facing as part of Afghan Welcome. But the other key attribute that we bring is hitherto face-to-face, but latterly because of COVID, these have been Zoom and online meetings. We have a very strong regional network. So we're bringing landlords together to share the experience. And this will be, as I said earlier, this will be a key part of providing a safe, secure and viable housing solution to the Afghan families as they try and integrate into the country. So these regional networks, they will go back face-to-face as soon as it's feasible within the COVID regulations. These are a fantastic way to network with people who are experiencing the same challenges and the same opportunities. And so we would urge you, if you're a member of the NRLA, to attend regional network meetings. If you're not, I would urge you to join the NRLA. And as I say, we're a not-for-profit organisation, so this is not a sales pitch. It's about expanding the network, and it's about expanding the voice for the PRS. And just, if I may, very quickly, Krish, just point to the fact that we have a discount on normal membership is just £75 a year. For this group and for Afghan Welcome, we're discounting that to £60, and you get access to all of these resources, including unlimited access to the advice team. And believe me, as a landlord myself, that's a very worthwhile resource.
Brilliant.
There's a discount code quoted there. Just quote that when you contact the NRLA, and you'll get full annual membership for £60, which I think is pretty good value. But just to reiterate our support, thanks again, Krish, for the opportunity to speak. And I hope to welcome many of you to the NRLA and working alongside the Afghan Welcome team. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you. It's great to have NRLA really supporting this. And I know most of you heard about it through NRLA's network. So fantastic to have you here, Phil. Questions are coming in, and we're going to get to some of the practical things in terms of what local authorities are able to offer. But I want you to hear first from my friend Ali, just to help you get a sense of the experience of coming to the UK. Ali is a refugee that's come from Afghanistan. He can tell you as much of his story as he'd like to share with you. Because of security reasons, Ali's not going to put his camera on, but you will be able to hear him. And Ali, it's just a privilege to work with you. Ali's providing consultancy to Afghan Welcome so that we can make sure that the support we give is exactly appropriate and culturally relevant. So it's a delight to work with you. Ali, tell us a little bit about your experience. What is it like to move from Afghanistan to the UK? What are some of the things that our new guests are going to be experiencing?
Thanks, Krish. I think it's going to be difficult for everybody, even if you're not from Afghanistan, if you want to move from one place to another place. And this move is not by your desire, it's just because you need to do that one, otherwise your life will be in danger. So this is going to be really a difficult move for everyone, whether they are from Afghanistan or not. But Afghanistan is a very probably unique case. Afghanistan has been in a war and a fighting for, I think, decades, as far as I remember. That's when that even when I was born, Afghanistan was in a conflict and is still going on after 40 years of this one. Yeah. The people who actually living or fleeing their countries and arriving in the UK, particularly here, they will have a kind of the mixed feeling. Probably one side of that feeling is that they are happy because they are safe, they are in a safe country, and they somehow see a kind of the future, a new future and a new dawn for their families, for their kids, actually raising in a safe environment and having a better educations. But in the other hand, they all also somehow feel themselves guilty because of leaving behind the loved ones. They couldn't get actually everyone. Their parents is still there, their family and relatives is still back there in Afghanistan. And in Afghan culture, family is very extended rather just being you, your kids and your wife or your husband. The family is your parents as well. I mean, when I was in Afghanistan, so we all lived actually together with my parents. So that what we call family. And leaving behind actually your parents, it's a kind of huge guilt actually for the people who are doing this ones. But sometimes you don't have any other option, unfortunately, and that is sometimes you absolutely need to do and move on and save your lives, your life, and those who are depending on you, which is going to be your kids and your family, really dependent family. That's a kind of the mixed feeling. But when you arrive in the UK, then it's going to be another kind of the shock for you. First of all, it's going to be a huge difference in the culture. It's going to be a cultural shocks because the people coming from different part of the world to this part, which is completely different in terms of culture actually. And then they face a kind of uncertainty as well. What's really happening to them? So particularly for this new arrival, the people who are coming in, the relocation is scheme by the government. So when we were visiting this ones, they are not sure what to do next. Actually, they're just waiting for the news from the Home Office. Okay, the other day they asked me, okay, do you know when it's going to be the housing, how fast it's going to be that one, and how long I have to stay in the hotel? We were really bored actually being in a hotel and doing nothing. And honestly, I didn't have any answer. What I'd say that in my experience, for larger family, that mainly Afghan family are large actually in terms of the UK. So you need to think about months time rather weeks times, and get ready for that ones and somehow keep yourself busy and keep the kids busy, actually getting out, all this type of activity that can keep you somehow busy rather than actually every day counting the days and the weeks that when it's going to be my turn that get the house. So that type of uncertainty is really huge. About the education is another issue. I mean, September is here and our kids are going to school. What about their kids? So they're all worried about that one, that their kid is going to be behind their schools and they cannot catch up because first of all, they don't speak the language, they need to learn English, and then they will be far behind actually from the rest of the class. That is something that, I mean, everybody's worried. When my family arrived, I was worried about that and how the kids can catch up with the school in English. And they did have problem at the beginning because one of my girls actually went directly to the secondary school and she was just quiet there because she didn't understand any word of what the teacher was saying. Yep.
Thank you, Ali. That's so helpful just to get a picture of what people are experiencing. And I'm near a hotel now, and those are exactly the questions that people are asking here. So thanks for sharing. That's wonderful. Now, the government are working around the clock. I know this from having spoken to dozens of civil servants who are just passionately driven. Whatever your politics, civil servants are just brilliant. They're doing a really tough job under really tough circumstances. And so it's great that we've got Lorna Fraser, who's representing the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government. Lorna, just from a government's perspective, what's needed? What do we need to do? How can the housing sector help?
Absolutely. Thank you, Krish, and thank you everybody for being here. It's great to see so many enthusiastic landlords on the call. So as you said, we're working in MHCLG as the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government, and we're working with the Home Office to help support refugees' families to settle and integrate in the UK. And that the programme is largely being delivered by the Home Office, working through strategic migration partnerships, which are kind of set up as groups of local authorities to resettle families across the country. And the government provides funding to those local authorities who come forward with places for families. It's a kind of funding package to help support the families access housing, schooling, healthcare and employment. But the kind of critical part of that and where you can all help is the housing part of it. So the local authorities need to be able to identify suitable properties to put the families in before they can make an offer. And I've got some local authority colleagues on the line who I'm sure can tell you about some of the great work that they're doing and how they're working with landlords on that. But the kind of in terms of the ask, we need a large number of properties obviously at pace, and in particular Krish mentioned families are typically larger than your typical British family, so in particular there is a need for larger properties, so 3 beds or more, to provide adequate space for those families. And ideally, the ask is for properties that are self-contained and available for 12 months to allow the family to settle. So in terms of, I think one of my colleagues has already posted the link in the chat. So if you do feel that you have property that you can offer, the kind of suggestion is that you should engage with your local authority in the first instance, because they will be the people who'll be looking to identify the properties. There is the portal where if you have kind of large numbers of properties, you could record that on a government portal and we can help to channel those offers out. But there's also, you can just kind of directly contact your local authority housing team, which is probably the quickest way to get in touch. And there is a Help Refugees website, which I can kind of put in the chat as well, where you can navigate to your local authority. If you don't have the contacts for them, navigate and put your details in, and that information, I believe, will be channeled through. So I'll put those in the chat for you.
Thank you, Lorna. And you're on the call for questions later when we kind of open it up a little bit, and we are logging all your questions. Our hope is to, if we don't get a chance to answer all of them, to be able to put those up, get answers up for you as soon as possible. We've got a little microsite, afghanwelcome.org/housing. And you might find this, that some local authorities, like the one we're going to hear from, Wolverhampton, are, you know, light years ahead, doing amazing work. Others are kind of a bit caught on the hop and kind of just deciding what they're going to do. Others may have decided not to engage. So we would like to hear the kind of offerings that you're making, because that may help us persuade certain authorities to think differently. So there's also a form on the afghanwelcome.org housing site where you can let us know what's available. It's around 1,000 families that we're looking to support. So, you know, if we're saying family sizes is about 6 to 8, that's, you know, somewhere between 6,000 and 8,000 people that we're looking to house. And that's just in the initial group of people that have come under this ARAP scheme, which is for translators and support staff. But our government, as you will have seen, has promised 20,000 people to come over the next 5 years, with 5,000 coming in the first year. So they will be the same demographic, most likely, of larger family groups. A few of you have asked questions about children, unaccompanied asylum-seeking children. There is a real need for care for them, but that's normally foster care or something called supported lodging, because we recognise you can't just put a teenager who's had traumatic history in a house on their own. They need family support. I speak as a foster parent myself. That's really important. So the groups we're talking about have generally come in large groups, because normally one person has worked with the forces or the embassy, and they're allowed to bring their wider family with them, their dependents. So it's normally a wife or a husband and their under 18 dependent children. So that's the particular group there's an urgent need for, and that's why we're talking about larger houses. So let's hear from one local authority so you can see exactly how it works out. And I've become a Wolverhampton fan, not in football terms. I'm a Liverpool fan. I'm sorry about that. But just in terms of local authorities, I've just been delighted to get to know what Wolverhampton are doing. And Anthony Walker and Jodie Ankers, over to you as you kind of explain how it works from a local authority perspective. And then we'll be nearly ready to just throw open for some questions.
We're happy to hear that you're a Wolverhampton fan, Krish, and just a shame we can't convert you to being a Wolves fan as well, but we'll try our best. If you could put up the presentation. Brilliant, thank you. I think it became apparently clear, I think, from Wolverhampton at the very, very beginning, when we started to get to hear about this, that we couldn't do things alone. I think Wolverhampton has a history, as the West Midlands does, and a lot of our authorities do, of kind of delivering schemes already. We delivered schemes in relation to work around resettlement of Syrian nationals, and we've done lots of work around asylum resettlement as well. So we've kind of got an element of history in relation to doing some of this work. I think what was very, very different about this scheme is the fact that the sheer pace of which things had happened, and what we saw things unfold in the media, and what we genuinely saw, which was a real concern to ourselves. Next slide, please. I think anybody that knows about Wolverhampton will understand it is a culturally rich and diverse city. We have people from all over the world that's settling in Wolverhampton through one way or another, both either economically or through humanitarian crisis. So it has a rich tradition and a history of kind of being involved in this, as I mentioned already. We had 100 Syrian refugees resettle in Wolverhampton, of which was done in a kind of a similar way by working with organisations to make sure that took place in relation to the voluntary sector, charities, but also elements of some landlords as well. And it became clear that actually we are struggling to find affordable and sustainable accommodation options, and it was felt that the way of opening these things up, working with organisations, is the only way that we're able to deliver this. Next slide, please. So we made a commitment very, very early on as part of this scheme, as a lot of local authorities did, in relation to making a commitment to accommodate a number of people. We're looking at 80 people in Wolverhampton at the moment that we're committing to accommodate. We're very, very keen to do this in the best way possible, but we also have one eye on the fact of what else is happening as well, in particular in relation to the fact of the settlement of other people who are arriving through this scheme as well. So even though we've only made the pledge in relation to at the moment of 80 people, we're also committed to the fact of what's going to happen next. So we're really, really keen to where we can get offers to do that in a very quick and manageable way. Next slide, please. Didn't realise how slow these slides are. So our approach, we're very surprised that our approach is possibly different to most local authorities. I think in relation to Wolverhampton, we really do want to work with landlords, not just on this scheme, but moving forward into the future. So what we're looking to do is we're asking landlords to be as close as to LHA rate as possible. We are looking in relation to 2 years. We want to offer some stability to individuals who are here. And we also want to give them the ability, when they've settled, to go into employment. And we feel that the only way to do that is really around affordable rents. We're seeking properties that are available and ready to let. And we're asking landlords to commit to work in partnership with us. So what's our offer? Because we're conscious of the fact that there shouldn't be anything that also has an impact, a detrimental impact on landlords as well. So we're really, really keen to make an incentive that will offer the best opportunities possible. So we'll pay 2 month cash incentive to landlords. We're looking to help where possible in relation to painting the home as well. We have a project that exists in Wolverhampton that actually was funded and was a migration project that actually does that work. We will furnish the property to a decent standard, including white goods, and we'll pay the first 4 months rent in advance. The reason we're offering this is that people originally will come with valid access to benefits. So we feel that the best we can do in relation to a contribution is to do that. And we'll also cover void costs when the property is ready to let until the tenant moves in. Next slide, please. In addition, we're looking to offer tenancy support for up to 12 months. We're also looking at 24-hour points of contact for residents. And all of this will be supported through our Refugee Migrant Centre, one of our long-established charities within Wolverhampton. And there'll be a point of contact for landlords in relation to communication and support. One of the bonuses around this as well is we were looking to re-establish a scheme that we had in Wolverhampton, which is called Rent with Confidence. We're really, really keen to create links, not just for this scheme, but moving forward in relation to private landlords. We want this to be a lasting legacy, to work with people who settle in Wolverhampton, regardless of where they're from. So we're really, really keen to make this work. And for larger properties, we are looking to cover rents around and above the LHA rate. This is Wolverhampton's offer, so this is exclusive pretty much to the city of Wolverhampton, but we're conscious that other local authorities may want to take up on this as well. So if you are interested, you may be contacting your local housing team if it's not at Wolverhampton. If you're not a Wolverhampton landlord, we might be able to point you in the right direction. Next slide, please. So we've got our contact details for my colleague, for me and my colleague. So if anybody's interested and is interested in the Wolverhampton scheme, contact ourselves. Or if you're just interested in being involved in the private sector in Wolverhampton, contact ourselves. I am going to pass you on to a colleague of ours that works in the Migration Partnership that's going to give you a bit of a regional aspect on things. And thank you for listening.
Thank you. So it's on to me now. So I am Jodie Ankers. I work for the West Midlands Strategic Migration Partnership, also known as WSMP. If I do refer to the acronym, please just bear with me. What it is, the West Midlands Strategic Migration Partnership works with 13 local authorities in the West Midlands. The West Midlands Pledge, and I'm just going to go through the stats and the figures and the numbers for the West Midlands alone, but the West Midlands Pledge for the Arab scheme is around the region of 750 individuals. In total, to date, we have submitted 104 property offer forms. So if you work out the numbers, we are in greater need of properties, especially in the West Midlands, and I'm sure like other regions of the UK as well. To date, we've received 189 arrivals into the West Midlands, and there are a total of 83 individuals who have been allocated properties and are currently in the holding accommodation, waiting to move into their property. Last week alone, we submitted 38 property offer forms from local authorities across the West Midlands, which is a great number. And as we previously mentioned, the average family size is around 5. So we are looking for, and there is a need for larger properties, in particular over 3 bedrooms. We have had cases where families are a family of 10, so a much larger property is needed. And there's also a demand and need for mobility cases to access properties. There's a lot of individuals who need accessible accommodation with a larger space and opportunity there. All the offers in the West Midlands have been submitted to the Home Office. We work really closely with the Home Office. All strategic migration funds across the region will also have this contact, and I will provide our contact details in the chat function for you. If there are any landlords in the West Midlands area who have properties in the West Midlands area, please just contact the West Midlands Strategic Migration Fund, and we will contact you and we'll refer you to the local authority that is relevant to the property that you have. As I mentioned, there are other strategic migration partnerships. So please, if you do have contacts within the local authority, they may also refer you to contacts as well. But as people have mentioned, if you do have properties, it's probably worth going to your local authority housing team to advise the properties that you have available as well.
Brilliant. Thank you, Jodie. And thank you, Anthony. Really helpful. We gave you a kind of little case study of how one local authority is doing it for a couple of reasons. Number one, if your local authority isn't offering anything in the region of Wolverhampton, at least you could use that as a persuader to say, why isn't your local authority doing it this way? Look what Wolverhampton's doing, and that could help us spread good practice. But also, it might be, and we've had one offer already, that it's such a good offering that they've got that some landlords are considering buying a property to get to be part of this scheme and doing it at pace so that we can get people out of the hotels into the area. So I don't know, someone ought to put shares into the West Midlands housing stock, because I'd love it if we were able to help all the families they're looking to house in the West Midlands to get the support they need. So that might be another option, that you might want to buy a property in that area. We're nearly ready to throw it open to questions. I think we're going to use chat to begin with. And let me just see if Shona can help us spot some of them. I'll field them to various members of the population of our
I've actually been copying them to a notes page as we've been going, because there were so many.
Oh, great.
And I didn't want to lose them.
And this is helpful. You know, this is not a government seminar. You can speak your mind. If there are things that you're concerned about, it helps. You know, Lorna's not the government in its entirety, but so be gentle with her. She's doing a great job. But it can help us feedback what some of the blockages or challenges might be. There's some stuff that we as civil society, you know, I'm working with charities, can influence, and there's some stuff we can't. So, you know, we'll do what we can. And while part of me is thinking some of the things are long-term political issues, and I haven't got time to fix them, but we might be able to do some things in the interim. You know, to be honest, what we're doing in hotels, in terms of providing a basic needs assessment, helping mums and babies get safe bedding and clothing, you know, someone else should provide that. right? That should be provided, but I can't be bothered to wait for it because children and families need our help now. So that's why we're stepping in to offer the help that we can. So Shoni, do you want to help us just think of the, you know, where do we start? There's so many questions. Where's a good place to begin?
Well, I can start from the top. So the first question that was posted, we may have addressed some of these. So let's just go through them and see. There was a question around whether we needed to declare any of this to our mortgage companies or insurance providers.
Yes, I saw that question. I've seen that as well. Some mortgage companies and some insurers don't seem to allow you to rent your property to a local authority for use as social housing. Just wondering, either MHCLG, Philip, or Anthony, actually, whether you've got a perspective on that. What's the advice under those circumstances? Who wants to have a go? Anthony, do you want to have a go?
Sabine just trying to answer, I think. I can see her shaking her head.
So from our perspective, it wouldn't be deemed as social housing. It would be a private rented property, as it would be for any other tenant. So the way that we work it at the moment, and we are really grateful for the landlords that have stepped up and come forward already, is that when they have a property, if it's deemed suitable, they do the same checks and the gas and safety and everything that we deem. We've got some HSAR registered kind of staff who will go out and check the property and make sure that it's suitable. We will then agree with the landlord around the incentive, and we will pay the void costs until the tenants arrive. So there is an agreement that's drawn up as an incentive and a hold when the tenants arrive, because they've got their BRP cards, because they've got the right to reside, they sign the tenancy in their own right.
Great, that's really helpful, because that answers, I think Craig's been asking that question. Thanks for your persistence, Craig. Who is the tenant? And is that the same in every local authority? You're right, they do have a biometric residency permit, I think that's the right word, and they do have the right to work immediately. So, you know, all of they're not asylum seekers. I'm concerned about asylum seekers, but this particular group, they have status on arrival. So that's great. But this question from Craig about who is the tenant, is that specific to the way that you do it in Wolverhampton, or is that a general way that we're dealing with this? Does anyone know? Lorna, is that something that you might know, or Philip? Or even Jody? Who can help us with that?
Yeah, so I mean, I can't speak for every local authority, but my understanding is as Satvinder set out, is that generally the local authority may guarantee some costs, but then the tenancy will be with the family. Okay, brilliant. Who will guarantee the rent? Craig is asking, and it's all right. You might not know you've got caps lock on, Greg. Can someone help with that?
Again, as part of the current criteria around the funding for the families, there is a specific amount that we are able to pay up to, based on, that's every local authority, so we can pay up to 4 months rent until benefits kick in, until people are financially stable and independent. Obviously Wolverhampton have made that choice to pay it regardless, based on the processes as it stands. Really helpful. And again, some of these things, you know, we're in regular contact with the minister at the MHCLG, Robert Jenrick, who's showing a lot of passion in this area. There are some things we'll be able to say, look, there seems to be a systemic issue. Can we see if there's a workaround? Some of the things we won't be able to fix at pace, but let's see what is possible. Shona, any other pressing questions that you think we really need to look at next?
One of them had questions around who would guarantee bill paying, not just rent.
Yeah, helpful. Anthony or Sat or Jody, you want to come in on that?
Sorry, could I just have that question again? Sorry.
Who will guarantee the payment of bills, or how does the payment of bills work out?
So the individuals are allocated finances based on the same of if they were claiming universal credit. So the family receives the same income as though they were actually resident within the UK and without habitual residency, which we provide through the funding that's allocated to local authorities. So then the individuals are already set up with their BRP cards to open bank accounts and set up bill payments regardless. So that's a process that they are supported with the wraparound support and intervention that's put in place.
Brilliant. Someone asked a question about what about single Afghans? Would shared accommodation be also needed, do you think? Again, the bulk of this present need is around the family group, but I imagine within the ARAP scheme there will be some singles, but as I understand it, it's relatively easy to find accommodation for them, but there may be some need. Are you aware of that, Lorna?
Yeah, I think, as you say, it's largely families, but there may be some need for singles. So I think it's still worth contacting the local authority if you have a property that you think is suitable for singles. And it may be that if there's not a need in that area for singles through this scheme, the local authority may still need housing for singles. So they may well be keen to speak to you.
Yeah, brilliant. Amjad's got a question. There doesn't seem to be a LHA rate for anything over 4 bedrooms. What happens there? Maybe Anthony, how have you handled that one?
I think we have to deal obviously with the restrictions of what we currently have at the moment. We have an slight incentive package that looks at larger properties, but obviously we have to work in the financial parameters of what we currently have at the moment. So what we really can work with is kind of the incentive package that we currently have, which is what's the additional top up that we've currently got at the moment? Is it 100 to 150?
Yeah, so we currently top up as a automatic between 100 and 150, depending on the housing size. Then we are currently in communications back with the Home Office and MHCLG, because they have announced that there is the opportunity to claim back some additional funds to secure larger properties. So we are escalating any concerns around not being able to have affordable housing for the size of the family based on the cap. We have all seen the announcement where there is the scope to claim that back. We are just waiting to establish how to claim that so that we can work with landlords with the larger properties, because we understand some of them have taken on quite large mortgages, to bridge the gap between the LHA, what the family can afford, and what the landlord needs to sustain their own property.
Yeah, sorry to put you on the spot, Lorna, but is it too early to understand how that money is available? Is there a process, or is that something we're still working out?
So that information will come out to local authorities as soon as possible about how they can kind of claim that back. But as Satvinder said, there's around a 5 million fund available to support with where additional funding is needed for those larger properties.
Yeah, that's great. Brilliant. We have about 8 minutes left. So Shona, do you want to prioritize some of the questions that seem to be repeated?
Yeah, to be honest, there aren't loads of repeated ones, which is great. There was a conversation, someone asked about how they'll be supported if there's damage occurred to the property.
Yeah, that's what I love about the Wolverhampton scheme. It's quite generous in that way. But Suti, could you explain that a little bit, how it works in Wolverhampton?
So I guess that's why we've put the incentive in. And I know that somebody's made the comment around this cohort, and I was going to respond in the chat. But this is a cohort, as we said, from our experience with Syrian resettlement and other social landlords and social tenants that come from new communities. Our migrant communities look after their properties more than Indigenous population. They respect their homes, and the level of care that they provide within their properties is almost second to none. I think there is the assumption that these individuals have come from refugee camps or not had homes that are actually quite luxurious. A lot of the individuals coming across had professional careers, and their accommodation that they had back home was better than we can imagine living in here in the UK. So when they do move into their accommodation, they treat it with the utmost respect. And to date, we have had no concerns or complaints around any of the migrant communities that have come from these routes and avenues, including some of the newly granted refugees that we work in various projects to accommodate, based on the level of respect that they show their homes. And as again, because they're families, it's a little bit about cultural awareness. The women remain at home a lot of the time with their children because they've got young children. So that space is so important to them that they treat it with the utmost respect.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. That's really helpful. Shona, just a chance maybe for one or two last ones before we come to a close.
I don't think I have any on my list that haven't already been addressed, but there is a question that's just been posted around how deposits are getting paid.
Oh, yeah, that's helpful. So the deposit scheme, I'm no expert. We're definitely in your area of expertise. How does the deposit scheme work? Are there also questions about people's previous residential history? How do we get around that kind of challenge?
So to be honest, one of our properties was procured through a registered social landlord, and so it was a different avenue. The other, the landlord was happy to use their incentive to put into the deposit scheme, but obviously we wouldn't take it back because it's our kind of money. So there was an agreement around that. In regards to the references, we were able to provide that it was part of the scheme, and they were happy with that process. It is a conversation that we're going to take to our West Midlands meeting later on this afternoon around getting almost a blanket Home Office letter around the families to make it a little bit seamless, because I think there's a different route. When you're going directly to landlords, I guess they have the scope and the options of the routes that they take. If we're going through letting agencies, there is that restriction and that little bit of a barrier to progress any further, because they're almost committing that to the landlords that they work with. So it is something for discussion today, because it's something we came across today.
That's really helpful. And again, good to have Lorna here from the MHCRG, whether there's something we can facilitate to help us get over that roadblock, because we're all, the at pace is the kind of in phrase at the moment within government. Everything is at pace and at scale. And, you know, we had a plan for the evacuation, but obviously things got accelerated as the country basically fell to the Taliban. So thank you for your patience with that. We're all trying to do the best that we can, both government and civil society, but spotting those little roadblocks is really helpful. So thank you for raising that. One more question, then I'll just close with a little thought, and we'll send you on your way.
There's a lot of people asking about the government guaranteeing rent and whether that's something that's going to happen. Okay.
Yeah, again, we're no experts, Shona and I, on this one, but do you feel we've answered that one already, or does anyone else want to comment?
It keeps popping up anyway, so I don't know if there's more to add on that.
Yeah, shall I just add? So I think I can see somebody's actually posted the link, which I was just looking for to find out what the available local housing allowance is. So I think those of you who want to know kind of what is available, it's worth looking on there. You can find your local authority and put in the property size. That is what is available to families on benefits. And as we said, these families will be eligible for benefits and public funds. Obviously, we hope that they will find work very quickly. As several others have said on the call, a lot of these are very skilled people. They worked for the UK government in Afghanistan, and we expect that they will be keen to find work, and will hopefully be able to find it very quickly. But at least initially, we expect them to be receive benefits. So if you have a look at that link that Jay has posted, you can see what is available in terms of rent on benefits.
Fantastic, thank you. Just a little closing thought. I want to kind of encourage you to view this through the lens of empathy. Imagine it was the other way around. Imagine you'd been working for a government, and then you had to leave your home, leave your loved ones, pack all your belongings into whatever you could carry into hand luggage, get on a plane and turn up into a new country, and you needed somewhere to live. How would you want to be treated? What would the circumstances you would want to receive be like? And there are things that I think we can try and sort out, and that's why the government's here, represented through Lorna, and that's why the NRLA are here in terms of being a public body that's kind of speaking up on your behalf. There are some things we can't fix quickly, and we might want to kind of lead with compassion, and let's see how we get on with that. I had a wonderful Saturday afternoon. My family met up with an Afghan family that's just recently arrived here in the last few weeks that we've become friends with. And my youngest daughter, she's about 9, and she has a lot of speech delay and learning difficulties. So her English isn't great. She's born here, but struggles with her language. And my friend's daughters obviously just arrived here, have no English. And somehow these two little girls found a way to communicate. And by the end of our little picnic together, we're holding hands as if they'd been best friends forever. I really hope you get the privilege of getting to know some of the Afghan people that have arrived here. I think they will, you know, exceed your expectations. They are generous people who have stood by our troops and our embassy staff and have helped us in a really tough situation in Afghanistan. We have an opportunity to return the favour, and I hope you and I get that opportunity to do that. Love to keep hearing from you. We have made a recording of this event. We'll make it available through the Afghan Welcome website. There are a lot of people that wanted to come today, but we only had 500 tickets available. So we're probably running another one soon. We'll let you know about that. And some of the questions that you've raised here today that we haven't had a chance to answer, we'll have a chance to answer next time. But thank you. It really means a lot to us that you've come, and thank you for asking good questions, tough questions. And let me say thank you again to Philip, to Lorna, to Jodie, Anthony, and also, of course, to Ali and Suti for stepping in and answering the tough questions there too. So thanks for coming, and look forward to being in touch with you very soon. Thanks again. Bye-bye.